Hi everyone, it's Konrad Bobilak here, CEO of Investors Prime Real Estate and best-selling author of Australian Real Estate Investing Made Simple. Have a look at this book. Have a look at the size of this book. It's amazing, isn't it? Just to give you a comparison between the finance book, which was the first book that I published, versus the second book, it's virtually double the size. And there's a saying, the difference between you today and 2 to 5 years from now is the books that you read and the people that you meet. And I'm a big fan of self-development and self-education. One of my favorite sayings from Jim Rohn is traditional education will make you a living and personal development will make you a fortune. And it certainly has made a fortune for myself. And I'm very fortunate, like many property investors, I've made ridiculous amounts of money last year. My property portfolio went crazy in 2020, having all my properties located in blue chip areas of Melbourne. I had no tenants issues at all. All my tenants paid rent on time, mainly because there were white collar professional tenants and none of them lost their jobs. So having that information, it's important for you to appreciate the fact that when you're buying properties, always look at the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. And I've been very diligent in terms of my selection criteria for investment properties and also targeting specific areas based on income and specific jobs in those areas, and buying properties that are relevant for people who are doctors, lawyers, accountants. And really those properties, most properties that I have, and I have old houses, by the way, on the 1,000 square meter blocks that I'm going to subdivide eventually. But most of the properties that I own are not conducive for families. The worst property you can buy is a 4x2 where you have mum, dad, 4 kids, 2 cats and a dog, because they get destroyed. And the most claimed properties in Australia are 4-bedroom houses in fringe suburbs for $450 a week rental. They get damaged all the time. So you want to buy a 2-bedroom townhouse that's $900 a week rental, which means you get a white-collar professional, couple or single person making huge amounts of money, probably have a nice car, nice furniture, and probably doesn't destroy the property that he lives in. Probably has other wealthy people, there on weekends, entertains their colleagues from work, and that's what it's all about. Passive accumulation of growth assets. So let's get started. Now, I haven't done a video for a while because I've been too busy floating around in my pool drinking beer and watching UFC, and I'm serious about that in the last 12 months. I've actually been really busy. I had 6 weeks off over summer, which I enjoyed very much. I live in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. I've got a massive house with a pool and a commercial grade gym with Olympic weights. So nothing affected me basically. I've got a cinema room. I've got my coffee machine. I've got my powerlifting gym with Olympic weights and full on black rubber floors with air conditioning and plasma screen inside. My life has been blissful for the last 12 months. I have been not affected at all. In fact, the only thing that's happened is, because I used to work for Medfin in the previous life, a lot of doctors and dentists followed me from Medfin and they bought a lot of properties last year, especially in July, August, mainly because they were working around the clock dealing with COVID-19, and their accountants were telling them, listen, you're going to have to buy another investment property, otherwise you're going to be paying another 30, 40, 50 grand in tax, whatever their income is. So last year was actually one of the busiest years that I've ever had in Investors Prime Real Estate since I started the company 8 years ago, which is incredible. And the smartest investors got in last year in June, July, which was the best time to buy a property because there were discounts that were unbelievable in Melbourne. Just so you understand, last year in St Kilda, I managed to source townhouses that were 140,000 below market. And in Essendon, there were 145,000 below market. And there were 4-bedroom townhouses in Essendon. So incredible time to buy. Now is an okay time to buy. The bargains are gone now. There's no discounts. The market has definitely recovered. So today I'm going to go through and show you where the market is right now. And I'm going to do a bit of a recap of what happened last year. The most important thing that I want to know is, where was the market crash that I was promised? Do you remember how many experts in 2020 were saying the market's going to crash? How many YouTube channels opened up with so-called experts saying, oh, the market's crashing. The housing market bubble has burst. Where's the bubble? We're in February now, 2021. I'll tell you what, there's no bubble in sight. And this is the interesting thing. Now, if you watched my videos last year, I said the same thing in March as I said in June, July, as I said in October. There's no crash. It's all bullshit. And those people will be very embarrassed in 2021, which they are. And then once again, I'm going to name names and shame people, because some of these people need to really start thinking about retiring. I mean, if you get stuff wrong 2 or 3 times, that's fine. You're a human being. Everyone makes mistakes, you know. But if you get your predictions wrong 20 times in a row, where is the point? I mean, do you have any self-dignity? Just retire and stop talking. You know, go to Monash Melbourne, get your money back for your course because it obviously didn't work, and just retire. That's my advice for these so-called academic experts. Now, I have a lot of letters after my name. I wasted a lot of years doing different courses, which basically amounted to not much at the end. The biggest thing I can tell you with making money is you can't learn how to make money from broke people that are teaching at universities making $100,000 a year. They can't teach you how to make money. The people they want to work with are people that are developers and investors who drive Lamborghinis and Ferraris and live in Toorak in $6 million mansions. They're the ones that know what's happening. And to get to those people is very challenging because they're private individuals and they don't want to teach people necessarily what they do, but they're the ones you want to get advice from. Never seek advice from anyone that doesn't have the exact results that you want. The letters after your name are worth 0. It's the numbers in your bank account that make all the difference. And I keep telling these people, forget about these theorists and academics. And the media, I mean, the media doesn't know anything. Have a look what happened last year. Doom and gloom bloodbath, and now, things are fine. Things are back to normal. The market's actually looking quite good. So my background is I'm a real estate agent, ex-mortgage broker, started off in the financial planning industry. The most important thing is that I am a property investor right now in Melbourne. I've got a multi-million-dollar property portfolio and I'm killing it right now in Melbourne. That's the most important thing, and it's the only thing that gives me the right to talk to you about what's happening in the market. By the way, this is my book that you can get a copy on bookonfinance.com.au or Amazon or any famous bookshop. And my new book is out as well, which is Real Estate Investing Made Simple, which has gone #1 bestseller in 3 days on Amazon. It went to #1. So I want to thank you all, everyone, for buying my book and sending all those. I literally have received hundreds of emails since the launch of that book last year of people praising the book and giving me really good feedback about what difference it's made to their investing and their perspective on property. So I want to really thank you guys for supporting me. And funnily enough, my second book now has come up also in the ranking. So this particular time, I was #1 in Amazon under real estate investments, and my finance book was #8, which is very cool. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate you guys for buying my book, and I hope you're getting value out of it. Now, what I want to cover today is the current state of the Australian property market as we are now in February 2021. And I want to go through all the failed predictions that happened last year, the bloodbath, the 40% market crashes that never eventuated, and why they never eventuated. And that's right, I'll be shaming and naming names once again. Number 2, I want to talk about why we got away with such an easy ride in Melbourne specifically. And I want to talk about a little bit about the budget and key influences that have really buffered the market to a large extent. And also I want to talk about some of the changes that are occurring in March this year. And the biggest change, which is a real game changer in my mind, is the responsible lending guidelines being scrapped that were introduced by the Kevin Rudd government in 2009, post-GFC, which means that people will be able to borrow money easy. It will be less documentation. And also the benchmark rates are getting lowered as well from 7.25%, which is the benchmark rate is the internal rate of assessment the banks use to work out how much money you can borrow, down to 5%. So the average 120,000, 150 per income earner, your borrowing capacity will go up by 10 or 15, 20%, depending on your situation, which is great news. So people will be able to get into the market finally. They couldn't get into the market. And also people that are working self-employed jobs and small business owners will be able to get money much easier from the banks than previously, which is very, very cool. Also, the first home buyer grants have worked really well. The first home buyers are back in the market in a big way. I want to talk about that sector as well, the issues with the sector, but also the good benefits of that sector. And this is a very important part of the Australian economy. You know, on the back of the first home buyers grant and those first home buyers fueling the market, you have a massive flow-on effect into the economy. I mean, every time you build a house in Melbourne, think about not only the construction workers that are associated with that house, it's the flow-on effect to the economy. The moment you build a house, you've got to buy air conditioners and dishwashers and white goods. And then you've got to buy furniture. And then you're employing people like that put carpets in and plumbers, electricians. And then you've got to buy furniture and you've got to buy electric goods. And then you've got to buy cars. I mean, it's a flow-on effect to every sector in the economy. So the government's very clever and they know the best thing to stimulate the economy is to throw billions of dollars into the first home buyers market. It's worked really well in Victoria. First home buyers are back in huge numbers, unprecedented numbers, in fact. And that has really helped the economy to recover. And it has really kick-started the whole economy. And also, you know, one of the biggest flow-on effects is that unemployment rates are record low as a result of these incentives and policies the government has initiated, which is really cool. All this stuff is cool, but really what we're about is how do you benefit from this information and where do you need to position yourself right now in order to take advantage of what's happening in the next 12 months, 24 months. Because I'm telling you right now, we're looking at one of the biggest property booms in 2023, and we've already had a massive boom right now. It's happening as we speak and it's unfolding in front of us. But think about this for a second. We're experiencing a very strong market, and I'll show you all the numbers in a second, without any people coming over from interstate or overseas. What do you think is going to happen at the end of this year or early next year once the vaccine has been administered to everyone and the international borders open up and all those people from the US and all different countries want to come to Australia to live because it's such a great country to live in? What do you think is going to happen to the property market in those blue chip areas where there's virtually no stock available at all right now? I mean, it's going to be the biggest boom of a generation. So the most important thing you've got to understand is it's going to happen with or without you. And you want to be part of it. This could set you up for future generations. This could be the defining moment in your whole investing career. And I'm not exaggerating. That's what I actually really believe is going to happen next 3 years. The current state of the Australian property market state by state and its actual performance from January 2020 to January 2021. And despite all the failed predictions of the bloodbath, 40% market crash, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. And think about this. Remember all the negative stories last year. Remember all the articles written by people with no properties, no idea what they're talking about. The market's crashing. And I saw all these little Mickey Mouse warriors pop up on YouTube with all the little channels saying, oh, the market's finally crashing in Australia. It's a bloodbath. Heh, heh, heh. Told you so. Well, where are you now? The market's back. And in fact, all that happened last year was savvy investors snapped up real bargains in blue chip areas like Port Melbourne, Elwood, you know, Collingwood, Carlton, East Melbourne. They just bought Richmond. They bought properties at a discount because the market was depressed. And so the best time to buy properties was actually last year in the mid-year when there was massive discounts and developers were throwing money to move stock because they wanted to continue to run the company. Do you remember this brick and slaughter story? That was September 2018. What happened? Where's the crash? Where's the 50% crash? Let's revisit the story again. A television report alleging Australian home prices could crash by as much as 40% next year being 2019, has been slammed by property experts. The brick and slaughter 60-minute report by journalist Tom Stainford focused on nightmare scenario outlined by digital finance analytics principal Martin North. It predicted 2/5 of your home's worth would be wiped out in just 12 months. 40% in a year. But then it went on how it's actually worse than that. It's going to even be more in other areas. And they showed a couple of people that had no idea how to invest and are losing money. Wow, that's a really good story. Like I keep mentioning, Groundhog Day, I just keep waking up like Bill Murray. It's the same story every day, same story playing out. Let's look at the facts. Let's have a look at what actually happened. So this is why I haven't done a video, guys, because I didn't want to do a video into RP data domain RAIV, Residex came out with all the figures because it takes a month to really crunch all the numbers. So we don't know on the 1st of January 2021 what happened in 2020. You need about 3-4 weeks to actually crunch the numbers and then reflect back on the year. And this is the facts now we're dealing with. This is all stats. This is the average house price in Sydney has gone up by 6.7% for last year. Melbourne has gone to a record high of $936,000 median price. Have a look at Sydney's price, 1.2 million. I mean, it's ridiculously high. Melbourne went up by 3.9% year-on-year growth, and that's December quarter to December quarter. Brisbane, 5.6%, median price, 616,000. Adelaide, who cares? Right. Canberra, 855,530, 9.1%. Perth, 563,000, 6.3%. Hobart, good old Tassie. I love Hobart. Such a nice area to live in. Look at it. It's becoming unaffordable. I mean, I remember when Hobart was 200 grand. You could pick up a really beautiful house for 300 now. Well, everyone's had the same idea. 564,000, 12.4% because of the tree change. All the people from Melbourne dumping apartments in Melbourne and little townhouses and going off to Hobart and buying 4-bedroom houses for the lifestyle. And why wouldn't you? Phenomenal area to live in. And so much to offer and such an oasis that not many people know about. Darwin, 533,000, 3.6%. The national average, 5.8%. So let's put things into perspective, guys. Despite all the doom and gloom, all the experts, and you know who they were, you were reading the same papers, watching the same reports that I was, predicted all these bloodbaths. Combined, all the major capital cities went up by 5.8% for the year. Where's the market crash, I ask you, that I was promised? And honestly, I would love to see negative 10 right there and go to Melbourne and just buy some really good stock at a discount. I get excited when the market's down because that's when you get a wholesale price. This is retail. So, and now it's just going to go up. Where's the bloodbath? Predictions in 2014, Harry Dent, the prices would fall by 27%. What happened? Financial Doomsday says Australian property prices would crash by 50% in the coming global crisis. And what they keep saying, it's crashing up to 80% and 60%, and Bitcoin's going to crash. Wow, real estate prices plummeting by 36% and Bitcoin by 95%. Bitcoin's hit $52,000 now? Tesla just pumped in 1.6 billion into Bitcoin. What happened? Since I was 18, this is what I've been hearing from friends with no property, so-called academic experts in the media. Konrad, but this time it's really going to crash, open bracket, when the following happens, close bracket. Not like before. And whatever that thing is. Aussie homes 40% overvalued, leaving buyers paying for property crash. Young people will be praying for a long time, by the way, if they want the property crash. And remember what happened, and this is from May 2020. CBA warns Australians risk 32% housing price crash and a prolonged downturn for years to come. And then when things weren't crashing, they came back in April and saying Australian house prices would fall by 10% in 6 months, according to CBA. Yeah, 10%. Maybe 32% was too. Did we say 32%? 10. We meant 10. Who's paying attention? Who's counting? And then when the market wasn't doing anything that it was supposed to, in September the 9th, CBA says, we reckon it's going to be 6. What did we say last time? 10? We meant 6. When we said 10, we meant really 6% crash. We'll go with 6. Because we look, we're educated. We got MBAs. We know what we're talking about. Okay. And then in September 2020, you know what? CBA came out and said, I think things are going rather well. I think the market's quite good. Yeah, it's going to be modest growth, I think. What did we say last time? Did we? Negative 32? Oh, no. 10, negative, no. I think the market's going to do quite well. It's looking good. It's looking good. Forget about what we said last month. It's actually going forwards now. It's quite good. What about all these guys betting against the market? And do you remember how they're on Australian news? They're always getting, or some current affairs show getting interviewed. They're always like, oh, you just wait and see. Well, I've been waiting now for 10 years for some of these people. It's been 10 years, guys. Decade. Still hasn't crashed. When is it crashing exactly? What, like, do you have a time or anything like that? 2014 bloodbath. Where's the bloodbath? Doesn't look good. Quite embarrassing. Nothing can stop it, apparently. Australia is on the brink of the Great Depression-style economic meltdown that will last 2 years, with house prices falling by 50%. And unemployment skyrocketing, experts say. Well, Harry Dent said the market's going to crash by 55% in 2009. He was wrong. That was now over 10 years ago. So, very disappointing. 60% in 2011, wrong. 50% in 2014, wrong. Not only did prices not fall, since 2009, they've gone up by 69%. Surprise, surprise. And now he's saying that they'll fall by 50% by 2020. Well, 2021, and they're going up again. So wrong again. How many times can you be wrong? Isn't it embarrassing? It's just... Mind you, it's no more like picking the Dow Jones index. Dow Jones is currently around 25,000. 40,000 in 2004, wrong. 5,600 in 2014, wrong. 3,000 in 2018, wrong. Bitcoin is going to crash as well, wrong. Interesting. Dr. Keane, again, on the TV, market's going to crash by 40%. I said it before, 40%. It's going up again. What are you going to do? 2020, market's up. Following every major economic downturn that we've had since we had the Black Monday stock market crash of 89, we had the recession of the 90s. You can see that there was a downturn. This is the economic event. And you can see there was an upward increase. The Asian financial crisis, once again, the market went down and recovered. .com bubble bursting. .com and basically stock market is counter-cyclical to each other. So if the shares go down, real estate usually goes up. GFC, market went down, fast recovery. Do you know how many people were selling houses here, panicking? And if they just held through those 2 short years, they would have come back over here. And then what happened now? China glut steel, and now we've got COVID-19. It's the same story over and over, just different background, different music. And look what's happening right now in Melbourne. Like King Street on a Saturday night, Melbourne buyers inspections frenzy. This is just in Hawthorn on Saturday. Have a look at it. See, people have FOMO now. They have a fear of missing out. They were buying into all the panic media and all the BS around the market crashing, and now they're going, I don't think it's going to crash, and we want to have a nice house. See, this is not a market based on fear, greed, and speculation. It's not a market based on investors. Investors are only a small part of the equation. The entire market in Australia is completely driven by emotional owner-occupiers, who are people that want to live in areas they like to live in, whatever reason that is, around schools, transport, whether it's lifestyle centres, whether it's whatever their thing is, whatever their family unit is. It's purely emotional. It has nothing to do with making money. So yes, they can defer buying things for a while when there's all this scaremongering in the media, but eventually they just stop buying into the BS. And now they're back in numbers, but there's no stock available. So what happens in the market? We have no stock available in prime areas, like McKinnon in McKinnon High catchment area, Bentley, Ormond, and you have all these families with kids who want to go to McKinnon High. What happens in that situation? Prices go through the roof. That's exactly what's happening right now. Have a look at this. I worked through Christmas and even held an open on Boxing Day, and it was like Chatson Shopping Centre during the sales, one of the agents said. Opens have been strong. We're getting anywhere from 70 to 250 people in Melbourne through each property. These numbers are crazy. They're crazy numbers. Residential property prices tip to keep surging with regional staying on top. And also what's happened, because everyone's working from home and they're actually very productive, if not so more productive than working from the office, two things have occurred. Number one, a lot of the old school employers have said, you know what, we've let them go and they've actually are more productive. Let's get rid of office space. We don't need all this Collins Street, Paris End office space. Let's get rid of our office space and let them come in once a month maybe, or once every fortnight to the office. The rest they can work from home. So then, because people are working from home, the distance between their home and the city is no longer valued as much as it was before. So people are going, well, I don't want to live in a small 2-bedroom house 6 k's from the city. I want to go 25 k's from the city and get a tennis court and get a massive house, etc., etc. So what people are doing is they're tree changing and they're looking after their lifestyle, number one, not living in congested in the city suburbs. I mean, to me, you look at Richmond, for example. I used to work in Richmond. It's one of the best capital growth areas in Melbourne, without question. Okay, Clifton Hill, Richmond, fantastic. Tiny properties. The average block of land in Richmond is around 150 square meters. You're living in a shoebox. Oh, but we got good coffee on Church Street. Who gives a shit about the coffee? You're living in a shoebox. I would rather take that 2 or 3 million, stick it in Doncaster or Donvale, and buy a big mansion on 3,000 square meters of land. And if you don't need to drive to the city anymore, and there's nothing in the city, itself, no one goes to the city anymore. We just go to shopping centres. I mean, when was the last time, if you're living in Melbourne, you went to the city for the whole day and walked around? Once every decade? Who does it anymore? No one. We go to Chatston Shopping Centre, Southland Shopping Centre, Eastland, Knox, wherever you live. So what's happening is, not only has residential property boomed in other areas, people have gone regional. People are going Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong. People are buying Shepparton, People are going way out because they don't need to work from the city anymore. They don't need to do that trip every day. And you know what? People are saving 2 hours a day in commuting time. They're sleeping longer. They've got a better quality lifestyle. Apartments on the other side, smashed completely. They built these monstrosities in Docklands. All of them were empty. They were sold to Asian investors overseas. No one wants to live in these things. They're completely dysfunctional. It's a ghost town, Docklands, right? And not only are rental property rentals are plummeting, no one can sell these things. In fact, the gap between detached houses, which is 936,000 in December, is now 64% higher than the median price of apartments. This compares to 52% over the past decade. So the gap between houses and apartments is widening, which means houses are going up in value, apartments are depreciating, and there's no rental there either. And, we had an amazing opportunity in Melbourne. I keep talking about this. We had hundreds of acres of prime land that could be redeveloped in Docklands, South Bank, Fisherman's Bend, all that area. And because of the lefties in Melbourne, we stuffed it up and they allowed high density crap to be built there. It should have been low density, high end properties, and we could have had one of the nicest cities in the world, but now it's completely destroyed because we keep listening to left wing minority groups. And now, what about the teachers and police officers they can't afford to live in $4 million houses in Docklands? Well, we've built it now. Why don't you move in there? No one wants to live in those places. It's such an amazing opportunity that we had, and it's destroyed. I went to Harbour Town just over the Christmas break. It was a ghost town. They should rename it Ghost Town. Spot the human being. There's no one there. 60% of the shops are empty. They're all closed down. The ones that are there, you can find in any shopping centre. So why go there? Why pay for parking? And to look at the same shops you have in Southland Shopping Centre, except parking's free. It doesn't make sense. Median prices in Melbourne up for this is September quarter 2020, 859,000. December quarter, 941,000. So 9.5% growth towards the end of the year. So when all the lockdowns finished in Melbourne, people just went back into the market and it just went boom. Apartments, not so much. Regional went really well as well. Houses, 9.2. Apartments, not so much. And so that's a huge thing in Victoria of what actually happened for the last 12 months. And look, like 12 months is not a good figure to look at because if you look at the last 12 months, 8 months of it, we were in lockdown in Melbourne virtually. I mean, all of last year was written off. There was virtually no 12 months there. So you got to look at the gaps that we were actually open as a market. And that's why I like looking at the last quarter, because then you can really see the comparison of when everything was opened up and agents could actually sell a property and do opens and do auctions. That's what the true market came back. I mean, when we were in complete lockdown, there was no auctions. Agents couldn't do open for inspections. You couldn't sell properties. So that's not a real market. It's not a reflection of what actually happened. So, the market is super strong. People have come back in a very strong way and pushing up residential detached houses and townhouses in prime areas. And it's not looking like it's changing anytime soon. So the question is for you is, how do you get 9.5% in one quarter, that's a huge change. I mean, how do you become part of that? That's what you got to be asking yourself. How to get to the stage where, and I know it's expensive and people keep telling me, do you have any cheap properties in Melbourne? I can only afford 600,000. Well, you've got to go for areas that are going through gentrification, because the reality is now, with areas that are prime areas, I mean, for an average house, you need $1.5 to $2 million. I mean, a trophy home in Melbourne is $3.5 million. $1 million is not even land value. An average block of land in like Bentley, which is like a normal suburb, nothing special. It's okay. It's good. You're looking at 1.2, 1.3, So, for a normal house, you're looking at $2 million now in Melbourne. A trophy home is 3.5 plus. The end is near. Interesting. Federal budget, massive impact, save the whole thing. And see, this is the thing, a lot of these economists and theorists, they always look at the status quo and say, if the virus happens and nothing changes, this is the outcome. But the government's role is to make sure that the whole thing doesn't collapse. So, of course, they're going to bring out policies, fiscal and monetary policies, to stimulate the economy, which they did brilliantly. And that's why the Australian market is so resilient, and it is what it is. A combination of cultural identity linked to the suburb that you live in almost, and ownership of properties being entrenched in our culture. And people won't sell their house no matter what in Australia. They'll sell their cars, they won't go for holidays, but they'll keep on holding on to their house no matter what, right? And the banks deferred payments for 3 months plus, interest rates are record low. Why would anyone sell a house at the worst possible time, which is what they were betting on? I mean, it was just crazy. So you had the first home buyers grants introduced, you had the deferred payments on mortgages, you had the JobKeeper, JobSeeker. I mean, it was billions of dollars spent, like we've never seen before, stimulating the economy. And I've covered this in the previous YouTube video. First home buyers grant incentives, they've increased the minimum amounts because obviously the markets have gone up. So you can see that, for example, in Victoria, now for greater capital city and regional centres, the threshold's 850. The previous purchasing threshold was 600. Because of course you can't get much for 600 in Melbourne anymore. You've got to go to 850 and 950 in New South Wales. So have a look what happened when the moment they announced the home builder grant and the market was going down. If they didn't, the market would have gone down. But look what happened. It just stimulated the whole thing again. And this is the problem with these academic experts. They don't see this point here. They make the assumption that everyone's just going to let things go down and go, oh my goodness, everyone's unemployed and everyone's homeless. No, that's the function of the government, is to bring things back. Remember, no one benefits if there's 300,000 families in Melbourne on the street homeless. Who's going to benefit? The banking system will collapse. There's no benefit to anyone. So, of course, this is too big to fail. The government is going to prop it up with money, and they're going to throw billions of dollars at it, and taxpayers will pay the bill. I mean, come on, this has happened, how many times in the last 50 years has this happened? Just over and over. Have a look what happened in terms of unemployment rate. Economic support, bang. Through the roof. GDP, bang. And if you look at where we're spending the money, the revenue of 2020-21 is expected to be $472.4 billion, and total expenses are expected to be $670 billion. So we're going way into the red. And we have to. What's the option? What, let everyone go bankrupt? You want to have 30,000 families in Berwick being on the street? legitimate people that want to go to work, but they can't. I mean, who benefits from that scenario? And these are what these people are just silly, they think it's like, actually, we're going to allow this to happen. So somehow the Prime Minister is going to say, you know what? Stuff it. We've got 30% mortgage stress out there. Let them fall. And the banks are going to say, you know what? Yeah, let them go bankrupt. We'll deal with it later on. No. That happened in America. It's not going to happen here, guys. We're actually smart in this country. So you can see the majority of the revenue that we raise is individual tax returns, which is $222.2 billion. And then we have company and resource taxes, $887 billion, and there's sales taxes, and then you got all the other bits and pieces, right? And if you look at where we're spending it, well, the biggest chunk that we're spending that money, this is where your tax-paying money is being spent in 2021, is Social Security and welfare. $227 billion is being spent on the welfare of Australians. JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and Social Security. Then you've got other economic affairs, $97 billion. You've got also health, education, defence, and other functions. The majority of the money was spent keeping up and propping up the economy, and rightly so. And as a result of that, if you look at the cash rate as well, the RBA came to the party. I mean, the bank swap rate is virtually zero, it's 0.1. So you have the lowest cash rate on recorded history in Australia. And at the same time, you have dwellings going up because now it's becoming easier and cheaper to buy a property than to rent, which is fantastic. New mortgage applications have gone through the roof in 2020. So there's a record amount of first home buyers, and investors have gone up as well. So this is new mortgages. You can see there, it went down for a while and then just has gone straight up. Now look at the last property market peak, which was 2017. So we're going to another boom. You can see there, this is first home buyer mortgages, record high levels, because people are just moving out. They remember they don't need to work in the city anymore, so they can be in the suburbs. They can be 50 k's from the city in their own home. And if you look at, so this is house price and sentiment has recovered as well. So people's perception of the market has recovered. And also, if you look at the prices, this is resi price through the pandemic. You can see Melbourne, Perth. So you can see there, definitely, this is January 2020 being 100, 100 points, which is the benchmark, if you like. You can see that definitely Melbourne has gone down and it was affected drastically by COVID-19. And then we had the whole gamut of things introduced into the market to prop it up again. And look what's happened now. There is the reality. Now, what I keep hearing now is the mortgage stress financial cliff. And it's funny because eventually what's going to happen is there's two things that in March we're waiting for. Number one is, as you're probably aware of, a lot of businesses are trading insolvent right now. And so, in March, they have to declare insolvency and shut down their businesses, and they'll stop paying, JobSeeker basically. And so most businesses that are zombie businesses, they're trading insolvent, but they're still trading just because they want to pay their staff, are going to go under. Now, I don't think there's going to be that many that will go under. And if they do go under, the government is going to extend and throw money at them or extend legislation to allow them to further trade insolvent. The failure rate will be much lower than anticipated. The other big thing is 1.5 million Australian households are in mortgage stress as COVID-19 looms. And so what's happened is, and I'll show you the numbers in a second, there's a lot of households on the fringe suburbs that are 3 months behind in their mortgage repayments. But those markets are not the markets you want to be investing in. You want to be investing in the markets that virtually had no exposure to mortgage stress, which I'll show you where those suburbs are. And I keep telling people that this is very important for you to understand, because when it gets bad in the economy, you want to make sure your portfolio gets through that period very easily. You don't want to have issues where you'll be offloading investment properties at the worst possible time. So if you were holding on to Docklands and Point Cook in June, July, and you had to sell them because you couldn't get rental, you would have lost $200,000, $300,000. It's very possible. But if you're holding properties in Richmond and St Kilda, nothing would have happened. January 2020 market indicators. You can see the auction clearance rates in Melbourne. In Sydney, it's 77.6%, which is fantastic. Anything around 80% is very good. 68.5% in Melbourne. and 42.7% in Brisbane. Brisbane doesn't do a lot of auctions. Who cares about Adelaide, right? Perth, 36%, and then 75% in Canberra. You can see the auction clearance rates have gone up. They've recovered. We can see in Melbourne, we're seeing last weekend, we had 80%, and the volume of stock is 40% lower than the same time last year. So you have shrunken stock in key areas and then massive amounts of people back in the market, which is a very good formula. So auction clearing results are amazing. Well, all other indicators that I just want to share with you is buyers. This is from the weekly demand index. Buyers looking for properties is up, record high, both in Victoria and Australia. So the buyers are definitely back in the market. This is searches for real estate for sale. You can see there it's definitely up again. And when you have the March data, you probably see it'll be around here somewhere. So people it's amazing, like in the 1st of the 4th, 2020, during COVID-19, people just stopped being interested in real estate. And there was a blow point when everything went into lockdown, and then they just recovered so much and then they went up. Same thing with the changes in searches for properties for rent. Lending laws are being terminated by March the 21st, which is really cool. The scrapping of the responsible lending guidelines introduced in 2009 by Kevin Rudd by March the 1st, and its potential impact on the Australian property market. And this is a real game changer. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of people coming back in the market that previously couldn't buy property that will now satisfy basic lending criteria, and they'll buy an investment property. So the property market's going to have another boom just because of this sector being activated in our economy. And I'm not going to bother with this because it's just a bit of history about what happened and how the legislation got introduced. But basically at one point, you know, because of the Royal Commission and the inquiry into the banking system, Westpac was writing a lot of loans basically illegally, let's face it. They were just giving people money and checking very small amounts of their financial backing. And because of that, they've written tens of thousands of loans illegally, which was exposed during the banking inquiry. And then what do you do with those people? A lot of those people are actually paying their loans and they're managing quite well because interest rates have dropped so much. As a result of that, though, we had an introduction of, you know, virtually we lost no-doc lending altogether and self-certified lending was gone. So the no-docs of pre-GFC were virtually wiped off the face of the lending spectrum. So now even low-doc loans are semi-full-doc loans. You've got to disclose your assets, liabilities, your income. Now we're coming back to some level of pre-GFC. What that will be exactly, no one knows, because when the legislation changes in March, there'll be a delay before products will come on the market. But I know that sector will basically, those people will jump onto those opportunities. So you have a lot of plumbers, electricians, small business owners. You know, they may operate in an environment where they're working from contract to contract, there's gaps in their employment where they couldn't get lending before. Now they're going to get loans for the first time, which will be huge. And also the household expenditure measure, HEM, which is a measure of what families spend on different types of household items calculated quarterly by the Melbourne Institute of Applied Economic Research, is going to be changing as well as a reflection of what's happening in the lending environment. So, what are responsible lending laws? We're going to just go through them very quickly. The Rudd Labor government tightened the responsible lending laws in 2009 following the GFC. The laws required lenders to make more of an effort to figure out whether would-be borrowers can afford to pay their debts, which is fair enough. When you're going for a mortgage, whether it is investment property or an owner-occupied property, the lender wants to know that you have the ability to pay back your loan. The responsible lending obligations had 3 steps. Number 1, make reasonable inquiries about the borrower. So look at their financial statements, credit card statements. Are they gambling? Are they blowing money at the pokies? Are they savers? Are they paying their bills on time? Are they paying the utility bills on time? Or are they always late, getting chased by, credit agencies? Number 2, make preliminary assessment to check whether the proposed credit contract is not unsuitable for the consumer. So are they overburdening themselves financially in terms of the repayments? Is the percentage of their income going towards loan repayments, does it exceed the norm that is established by the government? And then number 3, provide a written assessment of the credit contract is not unsuitable. This has always been required for lenders to make sure customers could afford the loan. The tightening of the responsible lending guidelines means lenders were required to take a much closer look at the applicant's actual living expenses instead of using the standard industry benchmarks. So if you're going out for dinners all the time and blowing a lot of money, even though theoretically you earn enough money to get the loan, they might reject you because of your spending habits. Banks took longer to process the home loans as they had to assess pay slips, banks and credit card statements to get the full picture of the borrower's expense situation. The winding back of these lending obligations may mean that it's easier and quicker to get a loan once it comes into effect in March the 21st. So what does this mean to the borrower? This is huge, guys. This is a game changer, biggest game changer that I have seen in the last 10 years in lending. Lenders may not be required to take a forensic look at the applicant's living expenses. So the challenge was this. Let's say you have got no mortgage and you're making $100,000 a year. Of course, you're going to go out, buy new clothing, go for dinner all the time, basically blow everything you make, maybe save a little money. But once you get the mortgage, your priorities will change. Maybe you stop going out as much. Maybe instead of having dinner 3 or 4 times a week, you cut it back to 1 or 2 times a week. Maybe instead of getting clothes every other week, you cut it back to once every couple of months. So people adjust their expenditure based on their commitments and prioritize commitments. But the banks didn't see it that way. In the old system, or the current system that's about to change, they say, well, we assume that whatever you're doing now with the mortgage, you won't change your pattern of behavior. But that's crazy. Of course you'll change your pattern of behavior. So you just cut back on all your expenditure, and because you're going to prioritize your mortgages first and then your personal expenditure. And this is exactly what the problem with the banks are. They were too conservative. Now, in a way, it has protected and buffered the economy and the market. But in other ways, we had a whole sector of people that were not previously able to borrow money, mainly self-employed people and business owners. Banks may not complete a forensic examination such as bank statements, and there will be much requirement of paperwork. They may be more flexible for lenders to approve good customers who in the past have been declined because the lender didn't believe they could afford the loan. You'll have faster and easy access to take out a mortgage and refinance home loans. If you work with a mortgage broker, you'll be protected by the best interest duty that comes to effect from January the 1st, 2021. And you have to continue to provide accurate information about the ability to pay the loan. And it also puts the responsibility right back onto you to be safe and sensible with how much you borrow, not the lender's discretion so much. So the onus kind of shifts onto the consumer rather than the actual lender. And there's still many things we need clarification on because we're waiting for the legislation to come out. It's a huge thing. It's going to be a game changer. Bottom line, it's going to boost the market again. So the market's already hot. It's going to fuel even more people into the market. It's not going to happen exactly in March. There'll be a couple of months before the products will come out onto the market. You see now, if you look at the change of, this is actually rent and sale, latest numbers. You can see there up sales of 5.16%, and then rents 3.73. So you can see that inquiries are up, and then advertised properties are increasing. Mortgage activity is increasing as well on the increase. So people going back into the market. Refinancing I like to look at year-to-year change. I know it was a weird year last year because it's not a typical year. We had 6-7 months where we were in lockdown in Melbourne, more so than any other major capital city. So this is kind of, it's a kind of more of a wider range look at what's happening. But if you look at refinancing as of new loans, because interest rates are going down, 63% of loans were to refinance and get a better rate. So they were up by 21%. Purchasing, 24.59% as a total percentage of all loans, up 10.49%, and then 16.82% up for construction. So construction is also a reflection of new home buyers buying in fringe suburbs. So it's a very healthy market. The most mortgage stressed suburbs, if we look at the categories, for example, so this is the all borrowing households in Victoria. So nearly a million people, 9.86 million households have debt, 437 have stress. Risk of defaulting, 25.849. So this is actually people that have lost jobs and are on JobKeeper, JobSeeker. And then you have the average default rate, which is 2.6%. And the average stress, which is 44.2%, which is the basically the number of that versus that. So you can see that in Victoria, we have suburbs that there's a lot of people that are experiencing mortgage stress, but they are concentrated in the new house and land estates in Melbourne, where there's 96 new house and land estates. If you look at people that are, a majority of them are young growing families. So they represent 73% of the whole pool, which is the largest number. And then you have also battling urban and then disadvantaged fringe suburbs. So they're the biggest ones that you have, which is basically people buying house and land packages in fringe suburbs. There you have a more detailed breakdown. I won't go into it because, but there are definitely, places like Hoppers Crossing, Tarneet, Roxborough Park, Cranbourne. It's the same places that I keep mentioning, Frankston, definitely Trigonina, Tarneet. So in terms of rental stress, Victoria has, Tassie's got 53.7, much smaller employment hub. Victoria has 43.8, and which is 460,000. If we look at the location of those areas, this is the largest percentage of concentration of mortgage stressed areas, which is the growth corridors. So you've got basically this area here. There's a little bit at the top here, which is Roxborough Park and South Morang. And then you have this massive gap here, and then you've got little pockets in between as well. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It is what it is. It could mean you can pick up a bargain in that area. I think these things will be snapped up very quickly. Are the banks going to allow these properties to fail? No, they won't. See, if there's one property that's got mortgage stress, it's their problem. If there's 10,000 of them, it's the bank's problem. And remember, the banks need to make money and show profitability. So they're going to work with everyone and defer the repayments until they come good. They can't afford to pull the pin on thousands of homes. I mean, can you imagine you had 460,000 dwellings? So like, for example, in Melbourne, this is rental stress, by the way, but imagine in Melbourne you have 437,000 households in mortgage stress. Can you imagine if the banks just said, well, stuff you, we're going to repossess your house, and you had 437,000 homes on the market? Who'd benefit from that process? I mean, it's just not going to happen. Ironically, what happened with COVID-19, it has disproportionately affected different sectors of Melbourne in different ways. And the biggest sector that got smashed, and this is a reflection of changing payroll jobs, is the accommodation and food services industry, which is negative 15.5%, 12.8% in arts and recreational services, information, telecommunication, 8.5%. So basically, the biggest sector that got smashed were young people working in hospitality, tourism, retail on casual contracts. The traditional sector, which is your banking, financial services sector, stayed intact. So your accounting firms, your marketing firms, your banking firms, all those, and medical sector, unaffected. And they hold majority of the mortgages in Melbourne. So the baby boomers with the old houses in Elstonic and Caulfield, they weren't affected at all. The people that were affected were the ones renting apartments in the city, working casual jobs. And that's why the market wasn't affected at all. Even though unemployment spiked, it wasn't enough. It spiked, absolutely, but the people that were included in those numbers didn't have any properties at all, and they can't borrow money to start off with. Now, some of them will be able to get into the market for the first time. The biggest number of mortgages deferred in Melbourne were basically Wyndham, number one, and this is Melton, Bacchus Marsh, So it's all the fringe suburbs that I keep talking about. They had the biggest mortgage deferred. Now, a lot of these will come back online. Some of them won't come back. Some of them will lose their house eventually and it will just get sold in the market. Postcode by postcode, you can see there, you've got Pakenham, you have Cranbourne, Narre South, Berwick, Roxburgh Park. Ballarat, Sydenham, just to name a few. There's more information on the areas. So in Melbourne, you have Berwick, Narre South, Sydenham, Pakenham, Cranbourne, Tarneet, Roxburgh Park. First home buyers jumped 46%, which is incredible in the last 12 months. So they're back in the market in record high numbers. It's virtually unprecedented. The number of new loan commitments in August last year hit the highest level since October 2009, which is incredible. More than 12,000 first home buyers settled home loans in August, up 10,000, up from 10,451 in July and 8,961 in August. So the first home buyers grants of $25,000 and the extra 10,000 for the loan deposit scheme definitely had worked very well in protecting the economy, and people got into the market. And look, the taxpayers are paying for it. You can see there in 16.3 billion, 5 billion for investors, $21 billion in the market. So it's a huge increase just in August, 29%, and total increase of 19.3%. Huge. And once again, I keep coming back to the bigger picture. If you look at all the different things we've had in the economy since the 60s, we had negative gearing, quarantine, negative gearing introduced, market's going to crash. We had a number of corrections in the market, but every time we had a correction, it was always followed by a huge recovery. And usually it was a combination of the market recovering on the back of stimulus introduced by the government in the form of fiscal and monetary policy. So cheaper money and then throwing money at first home buyers basically and making it easier for people to get into the property market. Now, what's going to happen in the future? Where is the market heading? In Melbourne, and this is from CoreLogic, scenario 1, cash rate unchanged at 0.1%. COVID-19 contained, JobKeeper extended to September quarter 21. You're looking at 2 to 6% growth. If JobKeeper is phased out in March, JobKeeper returned to base, and then you have progressive rollout of COVID-19 vaccine. Progressive rollout of COVID vaccine, that could take 6 months. We've got 25 million people in Australia. It could take 6 months, it could take 9 months to roll out correctly. In that case, we're going to have negative growth to 0. And then if better than expected rollout of vaccine in the first half year, bounce in employment, no more lockdowns, JobKeeper phased out, negative 1 to 4%, and a negative 3 to 3%. So that's from RP data. And look, it's very conservative. I think Melbourne will do 10 to 12% this year in capital growth. I think it's going to go crazy. People have just not bought into the BS that the market's going to crash. And remember, there's suburbs and there's suburbs. There's 420 suburbs in Melbourne. You've got to pick the right ones. The ATO reckons, the RBA actually came out and said they expect the market to grow by 30% over the next 3 years, which is unprecedented, and never come out and say that. So you've got a choice now. You can either react or respond. And remember, 5% of people are responsive. They're the investors that buy at the lowest point. Majority of the public are reactionary. They just get blown around by the media like a paper bag in the wind, and they accomplish nothing. They end up dead broke at 65 with one house paid off and 150 grand in the super. So the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. What's the main thing? Make money, get educated. What's the next step? For some of you who don't know how to get started, I want to offer you a couple of things. Number one, if you want to buy my book on realestateMadeSimple.com.au, you also have an opportunity to get access to my latest home study for $97. Education is the key. It's the difference between you making money and retiring dead broke. The book's $40, home studies 100, best $150 you can ever spend. 15 hours of education. I mean, if you don't believe that it's worth $150, you call me, email me, I'll give you your money back, no problems. Also, because I'm not doing any live events this year, and I will be doing virtual events, I want to give you an opportunity for some of you who are interested in building your property portfolio to have a Zoom meeting with me for 60 minutes and do a strategy session. And that's only for people who have certain incomes and want to buy properties in Melbourne and build up a passive property portfolio. So it's a strategy session with myself. People ask me, when was the photo taken when you were 14? I said, the problem with me, guys, is because when I grow my beard, I look 50. When I shave my beard, I look 15. I can't win. I'm 44. So that photo was only taken in 2015. People think I was 25 there or something. So during the 60-minute consultation, I'll do a whole plan for you. I'll work out where you are currently, where you want to be. But remember, failing to plan is planning to fail. You can't leave these things to chance. You have to actually take action. So what I do in the consultation is work out where are you currently financially in terms of your assets, liabilities, serviceability. Where do you want to be in the future? What's your outcome? What's your objective? So you might have an objective, well, we want to replace our income. We want to have a passive income of $100,000 per year. So then how do you re-engineer that back into property acquisition? How many properties would you need to buy to eventually in year 10 get $100,000 passive income from your portfolio? And then I do a whole plan of how you can work towards that. Or you can do it yourself and go through life like this, learning different things, trying different things. So it's a 1-hour strategy session where you work out with a very clear plan, and I'll give you the whole network as well. So I'll give you a email with your whole team, your mortgage broker, accountant, solicitor, right down to property management, depreciation schedules, insurance broker. So you'll know how to get started right now, who to go to and what to do first. This in itself is priceless. By the way, there's no fee for the consultation. You just need to be someone that wants to build your property portfolio in Melbourne by investing in the top 50 suburbs and buying townhouses, which not everyone wants to do. So it's the journey of wealth through property investing. It's a step-by-step, basically paint by the numbers, if you like. No creativity. How do you qualify for the free strategy? It's based on income. So you only source in the top 50 highest capital growth suburbs, and property is expensive in Melbourne. So if you're a single person, you need to have an income of at least $95,000 per year and about $112,000 in savings, which means you can afford to buy a $700,000 townhouse. And I have many of those to choose from in the best capital growth suburbs in Melbourne that are going through gentrification. If you're a couple, a little bit more complex, but in a nutshell, 80,000 and another person on 60, so about 140 grand, and around about 112,000 in savings. Although you can do less than that in savings because I have properties with rebates, and therefore you can qualify for a $700,000 purchase, and I can start your journey and show you some really good properties in high capital growth areas like Sunshine, or like Heidelberg Heights and West, and areas like that. So that's how you qualify, and all you have to do is basically just email me directly, konrad@investorsprime.com.au, say that you want to request a priority consultation with myself, and I'll come back to you and I'll give you some times and book in some options with you. And it's an hour, and people say an hour with myself is like spending a whole year reading books, because I've been doing this now, guys. I'm 44. I started when I was 18. Over 25 years doing the same thing in the same market. It's a quarter of a century, guys, in the same market. I grew up in St Kilda. I went to school at St Columba's in Elwood and Christian Brothers College in St Kilda. My office is in St Kilda, and predominantly what I source is Bayside and the eastern suburbs. I mean, I know these areas back to front. I know all the developers that are worth knowing. I know all the streets that are worth investing in. I know the market extremely well. Having said that, not everyone wants to buy in Melbourne. If you want to buy in Sydney or Brisbane, or any other major capital city, I can't help you at all because I'm only an expert on the Melbourne property market. So once again, just send me an email, and I hope to catch up with you over Zoom. And for some of you, if we get to the stage where we're actually looking at properties, I'll also catch up with you in person. We can jump into my car, look at some properties, grab some coffee in St Kilda, and enjoy the beautiful weather we're having right now. It's been a great pleasure talking to you guys. Welcome back to 2021. Seize the day. This is going to be an amazing year. This is the year where things can really happen for you. I hope you're successful in investing and you're in your journey of making money. This is Konrad Bobilak. I'll see you on the inside.